So the last time we saw Arianne was at the feast welcoming Swan to Dorne. And now we see Arianne is about to leave Dorne to go find Aegon and communicate with him. So we join her as Dorne Martell is bidding her farewell, and she gets all teary since he stands up despite the pain. Um, and then she leaves with six companions, the most important of which is Elia Sand, who is one of the younger Sand Snakes. She's one of Elaria's daughters. They cross the desert of Dawn towards the stronghold of House Torland, from where they're going to take a ship that's going to take them across the Sea of Dawn. And she sort of reflects back on what has happened since the feast, and tells us that Ilaria has decided to disperse her daughters over Dorne, so that not all of them die at once. Elia is going to accompany Arianne to Griffin's Roost, and Ilaria has been very firm. She says you're going to go as a lady, not as a fighter. But Elia seems to have her own mind about this. They cross the desert in a few days, and while Arianne misses all her friends and she misses Sir Aris, and she thinks, she was pretty stupid. She had been pretty stupid with the whole crowning Myrcella thing. And we also hear about Sir Gerald Dane, and that Obara Sand and Balance Swan are now hunting him down. And Sir Damon Sand, who is her sworn shield now, tells her that Darkstar can just easily kill Lady Obara as she can kill him. Okay, and while they're traveling, Ariane is asking Damon Sand about all these people they're going to meet. She asks about John Connington, and Sand tells her that all he knows is that he died in the disputed lands of drinking. And she also asks about Prince Aegon, and again Damon Sand says that he died in King's Landing. And Doran has also received a letter from John Connington asking for, his alliance. And he's just said, you remember me and I knew your sister, and I've been spending the past few years with your sister's son trying to keep him safe, and now he's returned to Westeros and now join us for the sake of his mother. Then, as they reach Lady Tolan's castle, one of their daughters comes out to meet them, and they have a race back to the house, and Elia wins this race since apparently she's part horse. Okay, and then at the feast, welcoming Arianne to the castle, she gets all this news. There have apparently been swords landing on Cape Wrath, and then castles are being taken and crops are being burnt, and nobody knows where all these men are coming from. And she tells them that Griffin's Roost has fallen, and and a lot of other castles in the Stormlands as well. And this is where we hear about Krakens making an appearance on the seas. And there is also news of a new pirate king that has who calls himself Lord of the Waters, and he has a lot of warships. And then at the feast, um, the younger daughter of Lady Toland says that she's had a dream. She said, I saw dragons, they were dancing in my dream, and everywhere the dragons danced, the people died. After the feast, Arianne finds Sir Damon Sand and propositions that, they share a bed again. But Sir Damon is still upset about the rejected proposal. Arianne is also thinking about, where Quentin is. They're still waiting for him to come back, and she's trying to convince herself that, I love my brother, but she's still confused about her feelings. The next day, they take a ship called the Peregrine, and Ariane is pretty upset with Elia since Elia is not doing anything that she tells her to do. Yeah, and she's just asking Sir Damon Sand about Viserys, and Viserys tells her that Damon Sand tells her that all he knows about Viserys is just that he was killed by a Dothraki Jarl who was the Dragon Queen's husband. And so that's the first chapter. So do we want to discuss this first and then move on to the next one? Or just...
Yeah, we can do that.
How much do we
So
have on the second one? Not much. Right?
it's just we just have a summary. So
yeah, it's just a summary. Oh, I mean, there's a fair bit of there's like a page and a half of information.
yeah, there's quite a lot.
That's true.
It's just that there are so
Yeah.
many new characters that
Both chapters feel like a sort of travelogue through Dawn and Stormlands. It's not.
yeah, and a
we're
lot
sort
of
of
history about characters.
yeah, lots of history about characters and the land and the various houses. I don't mind it. Like, it was kind of interesting, but I'm not really into this sort of
Yeah,
need of
again,
George
there's
to
so
sort of
many just
categorize every single aspect of Westeros. I
Yeah, I
think we
was
really
gonna
need to get a bit of
say,
pace going. Like, he didn't
yeah.
feel the need to do this in the first 3 books. Like, we got from Winterfell to King's Landing in like 2 chapters. Like, we don't need to see every painstaking sort of step of this journey, especially when there isn't even that much urgency to this sort of journey. They're just sort of slowly chugging up the way, visiting various houses, sort of stopping in on each of their neighbors, and I don't know, it doesn't
no, but
feel.
she's not. She's just there to take a ship, right? She's
Yeah.
not actually going there to see them.
But like, why even
And
show?
we have
Why even
to.
show this then? Why even like go
Well,
through all
because
this?
we have to see Teora Thailand telling us that there's going to be another dance of the dragons.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
this is
it's
accomplished in 2 chapters, so it's not as though it's like super like a lot of time is going to pass getting from all this stuff. I
Sure.
think that
Yeah. I didn't
relatively
mind
speaking,
it.
it's condensed. I actually
No,
quite liked
it's
what we saw here because I know we were a bit harsh on Dorne in the last few stands, but after reading this, like I actually like a lot of it's really cool, and I do wish that we had seen them earlier because it does seem late getting all this information. It does seem
Yeah.
a little bit superfluous,
This
but
should have been in book
I
5.
thought it
I
was
don't
really
know why it
cool.
wasn't.
Like one of my favorite lines was like Dornish men didn't waste water unnecessarily, whatever it was. I thought, and it's just cool. Like there's some cool cultural aspects I wish we had gotten
so
earlier.
Definitely.
so
Yeah.
I didn't like these 2 chapters, but I think it's okay because from what we read from the other chapters, they're all like very fast paced. They're all very plot heavy and everything. Everything's going on very fast. So I wouldn't mind a palette cleanser with these Arianne chapters where it's like slow, a bit more world building, a bit more
Yeah.
like Feast Dancer-esque. But I hope this doesn't happen too much. I mean, all these new characters it is introducing Daemon Sand. Do we really need another? Oh boy.
And the thing is that it would another thing that we get here is that as readers we know a lot about what's happening in the world. We know about Aegon's Landing and we know about a lot of other stuff. But here we see that the people actually in Westeros don't know that much. All they've heard are rumors. Everyone's really confused as to what is happening. Nobody even knows that it's Aegon that has landed in Westeros.
Yeah. Well, I think the Golden Company are keeping that pretty tight-lipped.
Yeah, so I think we get the sense that it's just everything is just chaos right now and nobody knows
Definitely.
what's happening.
Chaos.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the whole of the Southern
Yeah.
Kingdoms at this point.
It just worries me. I hope this doesn't happen too much. It's like when he starts writing down, he switches into this other mode or something, and
There's nothing wrong. There's nothing like necessarily wrong with the chapters. Like they're enjoyable to read, and like a lot of chapters in Feast Dance are enjoyable to read. But like there needs to be like a pace to these stories. You need to be able to like fit 3 acts into a story. And if your sort of world building and your exposition is so sort of big and bloated that it actually pushes like the 3rd act of the story into the 6th book, like that's a problem. Like he needs to really edit some of these chapters out, or at least sort of edit them down to like the really essential points.
Right.
Yeah.
And there
Yeah, I
are
mean,
bits of
a lot of
information to be gleaned from here. For example, I think we learn of the fates of Ariane's companions from the thing when she tried to hijack or kidnap Marcella, right?
whose names nobody can remember.
I
Yeah.
think one of them got married to this old guy while the other 2 guys got exiled. So kind of can speculate that it was a spotted Silva or something. She might have been the one who kind of gave up Ariane. There's only speculation. I think the boiled leather guys speculate that since she seems to have got the least bad punishment, marrying a rich old guy, and she'll inherit everything he has when she dies or he dies. So we think Spotted Silva is the one who gave her up. But otherwise, it's all like trudging along. It's like Brian 2.0.
And a lot of what we hear is just stuff about other characters that we already know. Viserys's history, and then John Connington's history, and Aegon, whatever. And we already know all this, and we don't need to hear it all over again.
Well, I don't mind them sort of getting perspectives of characters from different points
Oh,
of view. Like
yeah, but
each character
about
is
all
shaped
of
by
them.
different points of view. But again, you're just kind of recycling the same information and again, and that's not really
Yeah.
necessary. We're invested in these books. We're reading them continuously. You don't need to keep giving us like a previously on.
I agree with this idea
Yeah.
that it is recycling. It's a bit too much, but I still think that, like I said, I think that 2 chapters to get to Griffin's Roost is not that bad. I feel like
Sure.
that's pretty much of a pace of the travel logs we saw in like a Game of Thrones. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like we're gonna see. We don't know for certain right now, but I think this is still pretty fast compared to what we saw in Feast Dance.
And I did like
Yeah,
being back in Arianne's eyes. Like I sort of missed her because in book 5 because we only got that one Ario Hota chapter, and it is actually good to be back in her eyes because she is kind of the protagonist in Dawn, and it's interesting to see how she's changed since her experiences trying to sort of stage that coup with Masala. She is a lot more cautious and a lot more sort of respectful of her father, which is interesting. I mean, she's constantly questioning everything. She's not sort of as free and I don't know, bold and confident. She has inherited a bit of Doran's caution.
it's
I
it's
think
also
the change was a
nicely
little
written.
abrupt. I was reading this and I felt like she just felt a little bit too different for me. Arianne, I don't know. It's obviously she went through a pretty traumatic experience and had to reconcile a lot of things.
Right. Well, it's
But
been a
still,
while, I guess. It's been a
that's
couple
true.
of
It has been a
months,
while.
yeah. And she has
I
learned
like
information from her
the
father that sort of changed her perspective.
I like the details Martin has put in here, like how Ariane prefers to use the dragons in Saivas rather than, elephants or something else. This is something I would have liked for a character I actually appreciate rather than Ariane. I would have really liked to know what is Stannis' standard move in Saivas, and not really.
Just
Oh
to
no, or
flip the
Victorian
board
standard
over.
move in Saivas. Sorry, I mean
Oh,
not
come
Stannis,
on.
but not Ariane's. I don't get what Ariane plays.
Well, she makes,
Victorian's favorite Savas.
yeah.
Whatever it is awesome. It's gonna be awesome. Like he uses krakens or something.
His move is just to grab the other player's dragon and run off with it. It's the Cyvass is interesting. It's kind of a reoccurring theme in all of these chapters, including the Tyrion one. But I think in the second Arianne chapter, she makes the point that the Golden Company have their elephants, but they don't have their dragon.
I just want Savas to be a real game. Can we get a rule set and like figure this out?
It's kind of like chess, isn't it? But yeah, it would be cool to have a Westerosi version.
Seems more
rules and
complicated than
stuff.
chess.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're like limited on the rules we get, but it seems complicated.
Yeah. Maybe. But I just assume like the dragons are like the rooks and the knights are like the elephants or something. But maybe there's more rules to it than that.
Yeah, I for some because I'm a Korra fan. I also kind of picture in or Avatar fan. I also picture in it being like pie show, yeah, something like that. Just a bit more different from chess than standard chess.
Why do you guys think that Doran sent Damon Sand along? Like, I don't really see the point of that since they were like former lovers. Do you think that sort of might stir up some feelings?
Yeah, he's
I think
apparently
it's
a really
about
good
time.
fighter.
Because he obviously has a lot of bitterness towards the Martell family, and he displays that towards Arianne. So I don't know why Doran's decided to send Sand along.
Yeah, but he's Oberyn's former squire, right? So he's apparently a very good fighter.
Oh, actually, I heard a theory on Westeros.org. It was actually Elio and Linda who were talking about, and this is really crazy, but he was talking about how Damon Sand was rumored to be one of Oberyn's lovers, and they're sending him up to possibly like seduce John Connington.
I don't think John Connington's in a very romantic mood right now.
And yeah, like it's bizarre. But
See, that's the only move if Oberyn makes. I'm not Oberyn, sorry. Daron makes. I would appreciate him because at the moment I'm like convinced the guy's an idiot and it's all hype and scary propaganda, and the guy's actually an idiot.
I reckon it might be a bit of Doran sort of giving Arianne someone that she might not necessarily trust fully. Like she can sort of have his counsel and depend on him a little bit, but he is a bit untrustworthy. And I think that's kind of the message that Doran keeps trying to instill on Arianne is don't be so free with the information you give out. Be more cautious and don't be so trustful, everyone, because that's how she ultimately got her coup got sort of caught out. And he never actually reveals who told, but he just says someone always talks, and that's kind of the message he's trying to impart. Be more.
Coup was pretty dumb anyway, though. Even if she hadn't been caught, it wouldn't have worked out.
That's true. Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know.
We also get some Arya Hota hyping. in this chapter. That no man can stand against him, but
Yeah.
Darkstar is no man. We get some hyping for Darkstar too.
Darkstar.
So are we gonna get an epic battle between these two mighty warriors?
Yeah, Arya Hota seems to be being built up as like one of the best warriors in Westeros, like against even like Jaime or the Hound or something. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he faces off against Darkstar. I mean, I don't think anyone would call Darkstar a great fighter. He like can't even kill a little girl. But I think it's more that Darkstar is very treacherous and he doesn't really play fairly. So he might try and do something duplicitous, like set a trap or set an ambush or poison him or something.
But do we really care about what happens to Darkstar? I mean, it's total tangent from the main storyline, right?
Unless he's the real Aegon, I don't care about Darkstar.
I think the relevance
Yeah,
it's kind of like a side plot with Dawn because Doran has to keep war out of Dawn. He can't let a war be incited upon Dornish lands, so he needs to sort of quell this Darkstar threat, and he's going to have to use, I think Arya Hota, who's like the last POV in Sunspear, is going to be the one that has to quell that threat. So we're going to get a bit more of a travel.
Yeah, but do we really need a side plot in book 6?
Although that might put us into contact with the really interesting House Dane family, who are sort of
That's true.
The overlords of.
It is a side plot for sure, still though. It's strange. It feels like it's a little committed at this point, though. It seems like it's something that has to be resolved. I don't expect it to take too long, but there is an issue that it doesn't have many broad implications to the story.
Yeah, but it will take at least one chapter, right?
Oh, easily. Yeah, I don't know.
At least.
I reckon. I don't know. I'm hoping it'll just take a couple of chapters and it'll be wrapped up in book 6, and then we can just end the POVs in Dawn and just get straight back into Arianne.
So I wanted also, actually, before we move on, I wanted to ask if you guys gleaned anything from reading the letter John Connington sent Doran. I don't know why. It's a very simple sounding letter, and I read it like a couple of times, just trying to glean anything interesting from it. Did you guys get anything from just the letter itself? It's very nicely written, I thought, very flowing and everything. Yeah, it's like short. It's like a very complex plot. Hey, by the way, I got your nephew and we didn't die. Blah blah blah. It's put very simply in like 5 lines.
It seems like a mass letter that he'd write to everybody. Like, I mean, it's obviously emphasizing Dorne. It just doesn't seem like too interesting. It seems just like he's sending all the birds out trying to get his allies.
He's just like a giant stamp that he stamps on every letter.
No, it's very. Right.
But yeah, it does definitely seem to be appealing to the sort of familial connection between the Tugs and the Martells.
Yeah, it is a very personal letter. I mean, he mentions Elia quite a few times in the 5 lines.
I think that's also hinting not just at their familial bond, but at the vengeance that they need to owe to the Tyrells and the Lannisters, or at least the Lannisters.
Yeah, it's personal, but I just sort of see it as like him going like, how can I convince Doran? I'm gonna write this, and then he's gonna say the same for whoever else he's trying to convince to join it. I don't think there's much of a connection between him as a character and the Dornish.
No. Yeah, there isn't. No.
He might not even dislike them somewhat because Elia stole Rhaegar away from him. Come on.
Yeah.
For some reason, I just like the letter. The way it's put, it's short, to the point, invokes a lot of emotion. Just very well written.
Yeah, it is kind of a twofold thing. He's appealing both to their sense of anger and their sense of familial bond, so it's sharp and short to the point.
Let's get to this one, and this is another chapter after Tyrion 2. I felt, oh god, yeah, these are spoilers, not preview chapters anymore.
This is the last one, Arianne 2, last chapter.
Yeah, okay. This is a summary itself, so I'm just gonna read it out. Okay, Princess Arianne is currently traveling through the Stormlands to meet with Lord John Connington and Prince Aegon. Lady Nym and Tyene have also left Dorne and are traveling directly to King's Landing with Princess Marcella and 300 spears. Arianne's brother Tristan has remained safely at the Water Gardens. Arianne is very skeptical and cautious of Aegon. For her, the trip is more about gathering information on his intentions and troop strength. She has brought 5 Sunspear ravens with her to keep Prince Doran well informed. She has no intentions of seeking a marriage alliance with Aegon and means to leave the ultimate decision up to her father. As they travel, Arianne sends her men into inns and taverns to seek out news. Most of what comes back sounds like lies. The Griffin's men have been raiding and plundering the area. While traveling, Arianne just thinks about how Dany is... she's thinking about whether Quentyn has reached Daenerys and married her. And she thinks, well, Dany is still very young and Quentyn is quite unremarkable and he's unlikely to impress somebody Dany's age. Still, Arianne thinks that Dany will want Dorne enough to marry Quentyn, and she wonders whether she'll have to call her brother King Quentyn. And then she suddenly realizes that her cousin Elia has been missing for quite a while. And then she sends out people to search for her, and they find her in a cave trying to catch a fish in a pool with her bare hands. Arianne is furious with her for running off, but Elia becomes petulant because she doesn't think she did anything wrong. Arianne shouts that Elia could have died in the cave, and died echoes ominously 3 times against the walls. Arianne makes her promise to behave as she's supposed to be pretending to be one of the princess's maidservants. She confides in Elia that she often wishes Oberyn had been her father instead of Doran. On the walls of the cave they find carvings left behind by the children of the forest. Later she asks Daemon about what her father was thinking by sending Elia with them. Bemused, Sand answers, vengeance. They arrive at Mistford, which isn't flying its banners. They head into the castle and are met by 2 men of the Golden Company, John Mudd and Chain. They won't tell Arianne much, but she eventually gets Chain to admit that the Half-Meister is at the Roost and Connington is on the march, though he will not say where. Despite their earlier talk, Elia continues to misbehave. Arianne catches her making out with a servant named Feathers. Arianne yells at her, and Elia protests it was just kissing, and Arianne reminisces privately about losing her virginity to Daemon at the same age. The 2 women argue over who would be a more attractive hostage, and then Elia promises again to behave. And then Ariane is escorted to
Nadia, I think we lost you.
Nadia?
Oh well.
Oh, problem with the call. Trying to reconnect. We'll just see if she can connect. Okay, do you want me to just read the rest of it, or?
Yeah. If you can summarize it.
Golden Company spymaster Lysander Mar meets with them and begins to lead them. Arianne does not care for him and describes him as looking like a Targaryen. They debate over who has the better claim to the Iron Throne, Aegon or Daenerys. Lysander says that Aegon has Dornish blood, to which Arianne replies that so does Daenerys. He then proclaims that Aegon is the dragon, to which she replies that Daenerys has 3. Along the way, Arianne contemplates whether Connington is worthy of Dorne's assistance. She believes he will need the Dornishmen to take King's Landing. She thinks of Cyvasse and how the Golden Company has its elephant but no dragon. She has ravens with her and sends her father messages on a regular basis. Arianne and her party finally arrive at Griffin's Roost, and she is very put off by the crudeness of the sellswords in the castle, who are evasive when she asks them questions. Arianne is informed by Harden Halfmaester that Connington has not only already left for Storm's End, but has successfully conquered it. Tyrell and Tarly soldiers are currently marching from King's Landing to try to take it back. Arianne is stunned by Connington's success and does not think much of Mace Tyrell's chances. Again, the men offer little information on how this victory was achieved, but rumours indicate that it had been very bloody. Haldon tells her that Connington and Aegon want to meet her at Storm's End. However, Daemon is wary and urges her not to go into danger, but to send himself in her place. Arianne rebukes him, saying that she must be her father's true heir and go and meet this dragon.
Dun, dun, dun. Storms and falling. Wow, man, that's. I hope we get to see some POV of it and not this behind the scenes stuff. Yeah.
Two chapters of like trudging through Dawn, and we like don't even get to see the
right. But I guess between Battle of the North and Battle of Meereen, Martin is probably done and is like, I don't want to write any more battles.
What POV would let us see it?
John Connington.
Yeah, but he's not there. I thought he was letting Aegon lead it.
No, yeah, he and Aegon are leading the charge. So
okay,
I guess.
How do you think he took the castle?
Well, we think we speculated that. We speculate that he probably pretended to be Stannis' man, come to relieve the fortress garrison or something, and so it's probably a Trojan horse routine or something.
Okay, it's a Trojan horses. It never seems like a battle is won like legitimately.
Okay, and Nadia is back online.
Hello.
Hey Nadia.
Oh yeah, sorry, the electricity just went and my internet disconnected for a minute.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So Duncan summarized the rest of the part up. So we are just getting into the chapter discussion, and we were just speculating how Storm's End could have been won.
I have no idea. It sounds just the Stannis probably left like a skeleton garrison behind in Storm's End, so there probably weren't too many people there,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
which is
There
how
was a
they.
light Tyrell garrison outside, I think, but most of the Tyrell men have gone to defend the Shield Islands or something, or Dragonstone, so that's where the Tyrell are spread. So it would have been very easy for John Connington to defeat the outside forces and pretend to be Stannis'
Yeah.
people to get in.
It
Ah,
would
so
have to be some kind of trick, though, I think,
yeah.
because Storm's End is known for not being like siegeable. Well, it can be sieged, but it can't be like taken.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly
Yeah.
not in a
And
couple of
this
days.
is like John Connington's John Connington is one of the Storm Lords, right? So
Yeah.
he would have a pretty good knowledge of Storm's End.
Probably, yeah.
He'd know all
Probably.
of the ways in and out, and
Right.
Mm.
So maybe he took like a
It's
secret like portcullis or something.
yeah.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
one theory was that, as you say, Vic, he basically took out the Tyrells and then sort of entered the castle as friends, and then before, turning on them, sort of in a similar way to what Ramsay does. So that might be a possibility in a way. Because I mean, the rumor is that it was bloody, so that sounds bloody in terms of.
Employing the chaos in Westeros right now
But
probably
maybe-
seems right to me,
maybe-
because
Yeah.
there's so much going on that they might not have accurate information as to who's nearby and who's doing what. So I could definitely see that.
Maybe they used the
Yeah, I'm
elephants
just
somewhere.
saying that after entering the castle, they wouldn't have to. He wouldn't really have to switch, right? Maybe they would just offer their allegiance anyway, since he's there with an army and he's one of the Storm Lords. He's one of them. You know,
There
they
are no
can just.
support Enros. They don't have the same
But yeah,
willpower.
they are Stannis people, so it's King Stannis versus King Aegon, and the
Are they?
Storm Lords are against Targaryens, at least Robert's thing, right? Baratheons are against Targaryens, so they wouldn't have been.
I mean, maybe he's been brokering this for a while. Like maybe the people that hold Storm's End have basically given up on Stannis, and like I don't know, he's reached out to them or something. So this has
Yeah,
been
I
going
mean,
for
he's
a
been
while.
gone for a while, right?
Yeah, like he's basically
And
just left
Stannis-
them to their fate, like Dragonstone. So maybe
Stannis has
maybe
never
Aegon
been
is a
known
welcome
for enduring
surprise.
loyalty in his
Yeah.
novel. So
Yeah, and
even-
Stannis was never the Lord of Storm's End. Stannis was at Dragonstone, and Renly's dead.
But he did capture it from Renly, so it did belong to him fair and
But he
square.
didn't stay there
yeah.
long.
But he wasn't
He
there.
didn't
Yeah.
even stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he basically had abandoned Dragonstone and that. I think well, Dragonstone was useful, I think, because they were mining obsidian, and right now the largest pile of obsidian is with Stannis, so he's important.
Well,
But
Dragonstone
yeah,
was
Stormson.
Dragonstone was his seat, so they were certainly loyal to him there. But yeah, as you say, Storm's End, he basically arrived there, killed its lord, declared it his, and then just walked off to sailed up to King's Landing. Like people there have no loyalty to them, and even worse,
But-
he's basically left them to the mercies of the Lannisters. So I don't see
But
them
he's-
having a huge amount of loyalty to this Stannis dude.
Well, it's a well-fortified castle, and the only way to take it is siege it out and starve people. So it's a well-fortified castle. He's a Baratheon in name, at least. So there is a credibility, legitimacy that he has.
That's true.
But so so the way I see is, so for the Dornish alliance to form, sure, this is all very good, Elia and Aegon and stuff. But for the Dornish alliance to form, Arianne has to marry one John Connington or one Aegon. Do you think that would happen?
I don't think John Connington
No.
would belong for this world. I think John Connington's grayscale is gonna incapacitate him sooner or later. I don't anticipate him having any marriage alliances, and it's gonna be up to Aegon whether or not he is gonna let go of his pride and marry like Rhaegar did, or try to marry Daenerys still. I think that's what he wants to do, right? Marry Daenerys.
Yeah, I think at this point the plan is still to marry Dany.
Right, yeah. Although he does, I mean, we get a bit of that kind of rivalry between Aegon and Daenerys in this chapter. I think the Spy Master's comparing them and saying maybe Aegon has the better claim. I mean, we know it's only the Dornish that see the female claimants as being equally legitimate. So maybe the Stormlanders are saying, oh, maybe we don't need to wait for Daenerys. Maybe she's never coming back from Meereen. Maybe we should just seat Aegon. And Aegon's rise to power is really dramatic. I mean, he's captured a series of really valuable castles. He possibly has an alliance with Dorne. He may command the loyalty of the Stormlands if they have their kind of symbolic seat in Storm's End, and no one can kind of defend them, so they have to kind of swear loyalty to him. And they have Varys in King's Landing, so they've got a good infrastructure. And if they can sort of strike quickly while the iron's hot and while the Tyrells and the Lannisters are bickering, they could foreseeably capture King's Landing in a really strong way.
And I think the Tyrells being so subservient to Targaryens, they actually might switch over to being their supporters again. But probably not, because the Tyrells, after all this time, are finally so close to the Iron Throne.
True,
They
yeah.
might not go back to the
Yeah, I
Masters.
think they're
But
too
I have a
invested
hard
by now.
Right, but I have a hard time believing that the Storm Lords are going to switch to Targaryen side in spite of Griffin being there, because the Baratheons fought the Targaryens, right? I mean, I just don't
Yeah.
Well,
think
yeah.
that seats
Yeah,
well.
but the
Yeah.
Baratheons
It'd be
and the
begrudging,
Targaryens
yeah.
are related again.
It wouldn't
Hmm.
So
be. It wouldn't be willing. It'd kind of be. It wouldn't really have another choice because they're like their forces would just be too strong to oppose them. They would at least have to bend the knee to them.
I think during
and
the
being
Roberts
king hasn't
Rebellion,
exactly worked out for them, has it?
No, Stannis hasn't been good for them.
yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
he's pretty much abandoned them.
Yeah, he's just abandoned them. Yeah, it's not good. It's
And
not a good
yeah,
look. I mean, they'll be looking for any kind of leadership, so Aegon might provide that, fill that vacuum.
during the last Roberts War, the Tyrells and the Dornish were basically for Targaryens, right? Lannister stayed out, Aerys, the Vale, Riverlands, North. Greyjoys also left out. So that would have
yeah.
been the old alliance. If the Tyrells and the Dornish come back to support Aegon, the old alliance would be back.
But as you say,
Yeah.
the Tyrells are just finally taking command of King's Landing
Mm.
from the Lannisters. So to sort of renege on all that, it would be
Yeah.
counterproductive to everything they've achieved in the past couple of years.
I don't think the Tyrells will flop, but like I mentioned in the last Feast Dance, I think that it is mentioned that John Connington says he has a friend in the Reach, which I posited could be Tarly, though that might be denied in this chapter because they say that Tarly and Tyrell forces are coming to fight them. But it also could be like Hightower maybe, or like someone else that has a lot of power.
Maybe.
But even if Aegon's position,
And
like I think it
Hightowers,
is sorry.
sorry, I'm just saying the Hightowers would presumably be more willing to go for Targaryens, right? Because they were the ones who crowned Aegon the Conqueror the first time around.
Yeah,
True.
yeah, they're definitely
Yeah.
a candidate. Even if Aegon seems unstoppable, this is the common argument. Like I do think he's kind of unstoppable right now, especially now that we know that he captured Storm's End without issue. But the common argument made against that is that Renly seemed unstoppable too. And obviously we don't have shadow babies or any other weird wild cards like that, but it just kind of proves that anything can happen, and it's hard to say for certain if he will have some kind of like issue that takes him out.
Has John Cunnington been collaborating with Varys, right? No, he has not been collaborating with Varys. I
Yes,
was just
yes.
thinking maybe Varys had a role to play with capture of Storm's End.
No, he's with Varys and Illyrio. He's definitely their man.
Yeah, they're working together.
So I guess all he needs is the plan is now to get the Dornish on their website, either through marriage or just the old relationships.
Yeah.
And with
Although
Varys' help, they'll take King's Landing, and it's done.
And the interesting thing was, if she sends back word that it's a dragon, then they send their forces, and if then everything's okay. But if she sends back word that it's war, then they just sit around and wait. Because that's the Dornish way.
It's the Dorne way.
I think the best, I mean, kind of not going to war is always the best option for Dorne because they're not going to win because they have a weaker force. I think Dorne wants to prevent war at all costs. And that's kind of probably the more pragmatic way because I think Aegon's quest for the Iron Throne is probably doomed. I think the prophecy of the Mama's Dragon is true from the House of the Undying.
But
I think
this is kind of
I don't think that really works structurally. Like it would seem a bit of it wouldn't seem very satisfying to just have the Dornish go up, meet Aegon. No, he's not the right thing. We go back to Dorne. That kind of, he's almost forced. Martin's almost forced into a position where he has to sort of commit the Targaryens to the Martells to the Targaryens and enter into war.
They seem committed
Yeah.
at this point from what we're hearing from Doran. They seem like they want to finally do something. Whether it's allying with Aegon, maybe not, but I do think they're going to be involved.
But I think it was always much more subtle. Like he was trying to bring down the Lannisters in a really duplicitous way, whereas declaring for Aegon would mean total war.
Yeah, it's strange because he does have like envoys being sent to the Lannisters now. Like it would
That's
that
true,
kind of
yeah.
ruin that plan. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And I think that Aegon does seriously seem like he can't be stopped at this point unless Dany comes over. But I think that the concern, as I mentioned, is John Connington being incapacitated. Because I think that even though there are other advisors that could help Aegon, especially if Doran joins them, I think that he's kind of like the battle master, like the one that is pulling all these strings. And without him, there's Varys, of course, too. But without him, I feel like that there's no overt leader that can handle this because I don't think Aegon's nearly experienced enough.
Definitely, yeah. And Aegon's starting to show some sort of troubling signs of being really arrogant and self-entitled. So I wonder if he'll go down the Viserys track.
There was interesting that they briefly speculated, oh, if it's the dragon, then where is Quentin and stuff like that. And I think that this is probably could happen. So the Dornish are going to form an alliance with Aegon, and when Dany shows up eventually with Victarion's fleet, they'll be like, oh, Dany, so where is Quentin? Oh, I'm sorry, he died. And so it will be the Dance of Dragons again. It will be Aegon versus Dany.
Only one side is
and what's very interesting is that we've been discussing for a while that Doran should have considered that maybe Quentin wasn't the right person for the job, and here Arianne is thinking of what she's thinking is exactly what happens. That she says Quentin isn't nearly as charismatic and good looking enough to attract a girl of Dany's age, and she thinks of this pretty easily, and Doran. It's just that Doran isn't. Doran has never been a teenage girl, so he would never understand. The way this works.
That's the thing. It makes me feel just Doran is just overhyped, and it actually is not all he claimed to be. Yeah, but if this is the last phase of the war, I think if the Dornish don't join up any side, I'm going to start skipping over all Dornish chapters from now on.
It seems like Doran's actually in a really horrible spot because, like I mentioned, like he has all these plans in play that are kind of nullified if he joins Aegon because he's trying to treat with the Lannisters sort of in disguise. He's trying to get Dany, which it didn't work out, but he doesn't know that yet. But like all of this stuff would go against declaring for Aegon. So it seems like all of his plans, the rug is pulled out from under him if he joins Aegon.
Yeah.
So do we want to discuss Elia Sand? Because this is the first time we really see her.
This felt really random, like her going in a cave to catch her fish. Yeah, I thought, what's going on here?
I think that was more to show us, the markings of the children of the forest and
to see how far in the south.
Dead thing.
Yeah, they must be some of the oldest markings in Westeros because they're so far south.
Yeah, the children of the forest have been gone for a while, right?
They were gradually pushed north by the first men, but I mean this is far south, so
this must have been a long time ago.
Their trek across the Bridge of Dawn.
It's nice to meet a kid character, who's not burdened by all the stress and things like that. Like this Elia, she's a real kid character we've seen in a while. So I like her that she's so playful and she's getting into all these trouble.
She sounds a lot like Arya.
It's
actually.
cute. She
seems like Arya, but in a way she's even wilder than her.
Yeah, but Arya has his burdens now, so Arya is not really a kid anymore. Sansa same and Bran same. He is a kid character who can, it's just a good change of pace. I feel.
But but again, this is a girl. This is the 14-year-old girl out for vengeance, so it's not exactly unburdened.
See, I feel like this is where it gets a little travelogue-y and like I don't care about what's happening. Like, why do I need to characterize Elia Sand among all of these characters? Like, I care a lot more about Arianne and what she's doing, and even that's a stretch because it's introduced so late. I just feel like focusing on Elia and her quest, her vengeance, and I don't care.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Too many characters after a while.
I clearly see myself like skipping over all Dornish chapters when I'm going through the book the first time, and then I'll come back and go through them later, because it's going to be Arianne chapter between two Barristan chapters. I'm going to be like, I want to see what Barristan is up to, not what she's doing.
Yeah, but you'll be completely lost.
Look at it. She's doing nothing.
I guess the promise of the Dornish is always that they'll eventually become relevant. Yeah, but that's always the mirage in the distance.
My whole issue with this is too many new characters and still no Howland Reed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sixth book, really.
I know. Feels like we're just drifting away from what we're actually interested in this story.
I want the story to end with Helen Reed in the epilogue stepping up on a podium and like explaining everything.
Yeah. Just going through a list of dot points.
I know how the book is ending. It's going to be Howland Reed and Benjen Stark on a flying dire wolf and breathes fire and kills all the animals in a single go, and that's how it's going to end.
They're both faceless men, and Varys is there and Merlin.
So from what we see in
We've
these
written
preview
the end.
chapters, yeah, from what we see from these preview chapters, how do you guys think? Are you guys really optimistic about Winds of Winter, or do you guys think it's going to be Feast Dance-esque?
I don't
I
know.
think this is
Like
going to be much better. I mean, we've already seen two battles, right? I mean, we're almost headed to the battle in the north, and we're definitely getting the Battle of Meereen. So I think it's going to be much more satisfying.
I think
Let's
this
raise
is
the
gonna be like the
standards
last
then. Do you
book.
guys see this book being the best book in the series from the 1% that we see so far?
I think it would be hard to beat Storm of Swords.
yeah, that's the best.
Yeah, like I said, I
Yeah.
think this book will be not bad, like not really boring like Feast Dance, but like middle ground, like a Clash of Kings, where interesting stuff is happening, but nothing like super story beats that happen again and again, like Storm of Swords, are just really fun, like a Game of Thrones, because we get introduced to the world.
I mean, we are going to get these two great battles at the beginning, which will be really entertaining. But after that, it's hard to know what will happen. It might just be a lot more moving pieces around a chessboard and a lot more exposition and world building and traveloguing around Dawn and the North and Meereen. I mean, I can't even see an end to Meereen. I can't even foresee a
We are
scenario where things are in place in Meereen for her to leave.
I think Marine is well. I feel like Marine is done, and Danny's going to change, and she will go back to Westeros. She has now, because she has Victarion's fleet to help her get back properly. But anyways, yeah, I think
What
what this
about
book
Arya? I
needs
mean, we
is
need Arya to come back as well. We need Darian to come back. We need Arya
Yeah.
to come back.
this
The one
book
way.
needs a
After
couple big twists, and I think this book can
Yeah.
be the best book in the series. We need something on the same level as Red Wedding. If Martin can give us another Red
there's gonna
Wedding.
be this one controversial Sansa chapter,
Hey.
which
And
will
I
be
think at a con, Martin gave people an option whether he wanted to read a Damn Fair chapter or a Arianne chapter, and he told people that the Damn Fair chapter could have a big twist in
there's
it.
gonna be
But
a
people
big
went
Wouldn't
with
want a
twist.
damn
Arianne.
Riveting
chapter, though.
choices there.
Yeah. So Aaron, that chapter looks very promising.